So now we're going to continue with plotting data. I just wrote a real quick, simple program to save the plot once you are done. You notice that it's the same as before. It's just that it plots the figure. It's a 10 by 10. It puts out the markers as 12. The axes goes from -20 to 20 in both regions. And this is that perrin data again. So I know that it runs from 20 to 20. I turned on the grid for this graph. So grid is true, major, not the minor. And then line styles is a solid line width. You want to and what color? This is going to be green. And so you put in the labels, you put in the font size, and it'll do it just like before. It'll plot it up here. Under plots, it'll put the figure up there. What these two statements do is, and this is the beauty of commenting your code. If you don't remember exactly what something does, you write it down. GCF, get current figure. Not inventive, but very straightforward. So it gets the current figure, whatever the last thing that you plotted was, yanks that thing out and saves it, and it gives it that name. Now you can ask in the computer program for the name of the program. You type it in, it's user input, and then it'll save that thing as that. That's totally possible. I just did it as a static just to show you how it could be done. And that, when you run that program, that's what it looks like. That's actual size. I ran it. I pulled out the PNG. That's what the thing looks like full size. That's kind of cool. That's big enough to put in a paper. That's big enough to put in a report. That's a 10 by 10. So 20 by 20 is going to double that size. That's kind of a little big to be putting in on an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. This one would work just wonderfully, I think. Notice that you got the output is crosses, plot data set, and it's that R plus, that gives you your crosses. You have green lines, about 1.5 for the line width, and this font size is about 20. I could shrink that font size to maybe make it 15. Might work, might not. It really depends. So nothing really big. The fourth iteration of this program is I just took all of that plotting routine and I created a function out of it so that I can call the function, and here I'm asking which column in the data should I use to plot, which column should I use in the data for the y-axis, and then it will go ahead and plot the thing. This was sort of like the intermediary step between that and this general plotting program. This general plotting program is kind of like the thing I used. I import NumPy, I import the plotting routines, but now I also import tkinter as tk, and tkinter file dialog as ask open file name. I'm going to use a GUI for part of this. It's been really nice up until now. It's a static program. It goes out and gets the static file, does something to it, we get output. You generally want to choose the file that you want to have input as. It may be a file you've edited, it may be a file that's raw, it may be a file that's whatever, what have you. I want that ability. Now, normally what would happen is you would ask over here right? You would have a print statement that says input file name, and you would have to type in the actual file name with the path. And if you got one typo, the thing crashed, right? Because it can't find the file. This is the beauty of being able to click on stuff. Right? So I created this whole thing, get file. Right? And there in the description, function is designed to open a simple GUI window to allow a user to choose the path in the file. All right, there we go. I wanted to trigger down here, right, use the GUI window to choose the CSV data file for the process, because when it opens the GUI, it comes up behind Spider. So you have to actually minimize Spider to see the GUI input. So and that was my hint to go to say, okay, I got to minimize, boom, and then come back. All right. So let me just run this thing, right, and then we will see how it works. Right. Notice down here it's starting. And it has to go through, and now it has to load all of this. Watch the memory down here. I'm using 57, 56%. Right. As I start to use the GUI, that number is going to go up. Right. Notice it says use the GUI window to choose the CSV data file. Right. And then it's got a whole bunch of other stuff. Right. That is it triggering this. Right. It trying to do that. Now I'm going to just pick out totally different data file. Now I got to bring Spider back. Right. Notice that I have to click here. I have to make certain that I am in the input window, input-output window for everything. And now it's asking me, how many columns in this data set do you want to plot against the common axis? I just want to, for the moment, I just want to print one column. All right. Which column is the independent axis? You have to remember for computers, first row is 0. First column is 0. So this is the 0th column. I know I want the first column in this data file, right? But it is the 0th column, right? According to the array, right? Which column I know I want to plot? Column 5, right? Because it gives me something interesting, right? And I get year-on-year data, right? Just kind of cool. All right. Over here, it's get that file. It's TK withdraw. All right. File name equals ask open file name. All right. Return file name. That's all it does. Gets the file name with the path. All right. It returns the file name. All right. So down here, when you actually start the whole thing, name equals get file. It calls that GUI. You click on it. All it does is shoot back the actual path and to the file name. Path and file name. Sorry. And then it's like data set is equal to load text name delimiters comma. Instead of typing in the actual name of the file, you've now chosen the file dynamically. And it just loads the data set. Everything else is exactly the same as it was before, except I've shoved it into functions, which makes this more usable and user-friendly. Because once you get chunks of things done and they are working properly, you put it into a function, and now it's done, it's out of the way. And I can reuse it 100 million times. I have done that. You've seen that in the previous programs. As I have refined things and gotten things to work, you shove it in a function, and then I just copy and paste, copy and paste. That's the beauty of computer programming here. Once you get it to work, don't reinvent the wheel. And so now it's like how many columns, right? Which columns, right? And now it's a for loop. Right? I want the input. Which columns should I use in the data file for the y-axis? If I wanted to print to graph more than one thing, suppose I wanted to graph like 3 columns on the same graph, I could do that. If I wanted to, right? And then I could just, how many columns in the data set? And I would tell it like 2 or 3, or, and then I would have 3 different data sets in the same graph. Right, and then which columns to use in the axis, columns 5, column 6, column 7, column, whatever, for the whole thing. Right, and then it's going to print the y value and then graphing the data. Right, that's what generates that graph. Right, and it graphs it with datum from column. That's this title, which is up here. Right, and so that's going to give you your legend. Which will give you different colors. It will automatically step you through colors. So if you are graphing 3 different data sets, it will give you 3 different colors. You will be able to tell exactly what data is from what column, which is cool. And then it's going to plot the whole thing. Turns on the grid, major axis, gives me a line style, it gives me the graph in green, or the grid in green. It plots the legend, and then it shows the file. There it is. So hopefully that, you can download all of these programs from the LMS. Definitely go ahead and play with them. Use them as your blank templates to complete all of the programming assignments. That's why I am giving them to you, so that you do not have to recreate the wheel. The only thing you need to do is change this line right here. Just make certain that your name is on the thing, and you will probably want to change that created online. So it's created on whatever, and you don't have to give me the day, the date, and the time. You could just tell me, or just delete the whole thing, as far as created on goes. But definitely replace the author, because it's not going to be me anymore. It's going to be you, and this is the name of the program. So hopefully that has been helpful. Again, any questions during the class, make certain that you post them in either the chat section, the discussion boards, or email me inside the LMS. Thank you very much.